Bringing it today. OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network. John McLean
pissed off for greatness today,
will join us in about 6 minutes. Yeah, I love it.
So some agree with me on Twitter. You know, some don't.
Sure.
Such is life, which is fine. Gavin on Twitter says, "Oh, that dude on the West Coast also has the best stats of the group and took a 4-win team to 11 wins in the conference championship." Okay, while technically true, you took Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma, who took that quarterback from Oklahoma, and Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff Award winner, and other big-time transfers in. So,
again,
they took the program to the next level, but they did so with a lot of new guys immediately because of the transfer portal. So it's not like he took over a group of like plucky, overachievers that were left behind and no one else wanted, and then won 11 games with a 4-win team, or 10 games, whatever the final win total was. He took a bunch of guys from other places.
Man, North Carolina's changed places from number 1 to out of the AP top 25. What a fall. And just compare, look at Louisville. We've got the net rankings that were released today, CBS Sports with the graphic, and Chad, they rank 361st on this. It's been updated.
Yeah, 360 out of 363. Davey Hudson brought this to our attention yesterday.
They're 0-8.
So Hartford, by the way, is leaving like basketball. I don't think they're going to have a program. I'm not exaggerating this. Their coach resigned a week before the first game, or like after the first game, because he could not.
Merrimack and Stony Brook are ahead of Louisville right now.
Hartford could not get. Just keep in mind, this is where Louisville is. They're 3 spots away from Hartford, who I may be exaggerating some of this story, but the coach just left because the administration couldn't guarantee him there'd be basketball next year. Like they're trying to leave playing the sport. Not just Division I. I know they're dropping down at least a level or 2 at best. That's where Louisville is right now. Louisville, close to.
They're dropping from Division I to Division III.
That's it. Yeah, two levels. 2.
And they're 3 levels beneath Louisville right now in the net rankings. Crazy college basketball season. We'll be covering it in the upcoming weeks.
North Carolina will be fine, though. They'll be just fine.
That's right.
Mark my word.
John McLean next on OutKick 360.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Just like that, second hour is here. OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network, streaming live at OutKick.com.
We're back, baby.
We're here. We're ready to go. We've got John McLean with NFL headlines coming up. Looking forward to that chat. It'll include his reaction as the Titans announced today they fired their general manager, John Robinson. It's still hard to believe that they did that. 7-5 on the season. AFC South leading and soon to be hosting a playoff game. Tennessee Titans firing their GM on December the 6th and not February the 6th or whenever you want to make that change after the season, which is, I think we're in agreement here, which would happen right after the wild card round, right? Well, I don't think they're a team that's very good or capable of winning a playoff game right now against the best
I will
opponents.
be in utter shock if the Titans beat anyone in the playoffs.
Or now?
I was more shocked seeing John Robinson fired today than I would be if the Titans won one playoff game. But I would still be shocked if they won a single game in the playoffs.
Chad, I am never shocked when Tom Brady leads a comeback like he did last night. He's jogging to the huddle with 5 minutes to go roughly, down 10, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is a lifeless offense, and then he threw that pick, or it was bobbled or whatever. It wasn't actually intercepted, but it appeared to be initially, and it was ruled incomplete. And you're thinking, man, we're seeing the Bucs really tail off here. And then they go down and score twice and win the game. Incredible. And again, he does it again. They win 17-16 over the Saints.
Yeah, the whole sequence where they got the ball back, at 16-3 only because Ingram was hurt and stepped out early, and then incomplete, and then they punt it back and Brady scores twice. Incredible. So I was at a Christmas dinner last night and not watching the game. I looked in the bar at one point to see the television, to see it 16-3 with 6 minutes and change left. And I'm thinking, man, the Saints really do just have Brady's number. He can't do anything against them. It's amazing. Yeah. And then I started thinking, the dude's 45. I'm just thinking about myself right now at 40. And obviously he takes much better care of himself than I do. But I'm thinking,
no way.
Maybe, just maybe, I'm trying avocado ice cream, but it's not working, not to the extent of Brady. Yeah. But I'm thinking, maybe, hey, the guy just is not as fast reflex-wise. He just can't see things as well. And the Saints are exploiting that, and he's just, not the same. And every time I let that thought creep into my mind.
I know.
By the time I got in my car and got home, I then look at my phone again, no distracted driving, didn't look at my phone as I drove, get home, look at my phone, and I see 17-16 Brady. And I read about it, and I watch the highlights, and I thought, I am so stupid for allowing myself once again to think that Tom Brady ages like anyone else and that he's losing it. Because every time I think that, he strikes.
I know.
Here's the other thing I thought last night.
It's impressive.
Watching that finish, Dennis Allen is definitely one and done.
Yes. Yeah, and
I'm going to add him to the Nathaniel Hackett list.
Todd Bowles could be too, depending on what happens with the Bucs.
No doubt.
The 44th career fourth quarter comeback for Tom Brady. That's the most in NFL history. He also picked up his 56th career game-winning drive. That's extending his own NFL record already. And the Buccaneers totaled 130 yards on their final two scoring drives. They had 168 total yards prior to that possession with 5:31 remaining. Bucs win. And you feel like there's an energy there now. They're in now the driver's seat of the NFC South as we head into
bad
week
division.
14. Yes, it is.
Bad division.
Other headlines out there. How much money has been offered to Aaron Judge from the Giants?
I need to see the exact number.
Did you say 361?
It's either 361 or 391.
And
I get my 6s and 9s confused sometimes.
And meanwhile,
I'll make sure to double
Trey
check.
Turner has turned down more money to go to Philadelphia.
So Trey Turner turned down a record $331 million contract from San Diego to go to Philadelphia.
Wow.
Keep in mind, Fernando Tatis Jr. has been their shortstop. He gets busted for roids or whatever it was, deer antler spray or whatever, some sort of performance-enhancing substance. And it looked like they're moving on from him. Now, they get turned down, and he goes to Philly, so maybe that changes some things. But, yeah, I'm going to find what Aaron Judge has been offered with the Giants. The thought is, from every writer that I read nationally, the Yankees still hold the advantage. But there's also no guarantee that Judge goes back to the Yankees with his Giants offer and to see if they can match.
Okay.
That he may just make the decision one way or the other.
And how about the headline last night where Cashman's saying that Steinbrenner's putting his money where his mouth is or whatever in response to the free agency for Judge? And I'm thinking, we know what the Giants have out there, so good luck.
So here it is. This is from John Heyman, who covers the baseball for the New York Post. Giants are in with a big offer, believed to be in the $360 million neighborhood. But the assumption belief among rivals is that the Yankees remain favorites. Yankees are hopeful, but say they still don't know. So that's someone talking directly to the Yankees. I hope Aaron Judge stays the Yankees. I am not a Yankees guy, but
I do too.
I just think it's better for the sport.
It's rare for the sport.
It's better for his legacy. You know, that you don't mix it up right now. I mean, he's a lifelong Yankee and signs a long contract.
The 60 homer
I think it's good for everyone.
chase mattered because he did it as a Yankee. I mean, that's why it was covered to that great extent, you know, because you're passing Ruth and Maris and you're on your way to the AL crown for home runs in a single season. At least that was the narrative.
We have Baker Mayfield news.
Okay.
As of right now, this from Adam Schefter. Former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield was claimed on waivers today by the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams now inherit the remaining $1.35 million on Mayfield's contract. Mayfield expected to fly to L.A. by tonight, could play Thursday night versus the Raiders.
And they don't, I mean, Stafford's done. He has a contusion on his spinal cord or something, is what McVay said earlier this week. So, yeah, this is limping into the offseason for Baker Mayfield. Then he's a free agent again. And maybe he sticks, but maybe not. But he's not San Francisco's quarterback. And that's probably the most important note here for a team that is very desperate for some quarterback play if Brock Purdy were to get hurt.
Let me ask a dumb question right now. Why do you do this if you're the Rams? What's in it for you? You're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess to evaluate him.
Why are you inheriting the contract and not just let him, I
don't know.
I don't like this. I really like Baker Mayfield to the 49ers because they're a playoff team. So, and they've got Brock Purdy starting for them right now, and there could be an opportunity. I mean, there's an opportunity with the Rams because Stafford's out, but I don't get it unless you think that there's going to be some sort of tryout for him, that he's still got something that he could really help you long term. I just don't. If you're going to have,
I'm with you.
If you're going to have a rent-a-player for the home
you're
stretch,
in the chase.
Then you should be in the chase.
Yeah, I agree.
This seems selfish of the Rams. The team that just won the Super Bowl last year, what?
But it's
if you're San Francisco or someone said we could use the guy, but who's got a lot of experience.
I mean, what they're also saying. I mean, again, I'm just kind of spitballing here because I agree with you. It's strange. They don't have draft picks, so if you want to evaluate quarterbacks, that could potentially be a backup for Matthew Stafford, who has now a spinal issue, and McVay said not being able to throw this offseason definitely affected his overall play all season long with the elbow and other things that he had going on. If you think that's an issue again going into this offseason, you need to have some options, and they get 5 games now to determine if Baker Mayfield should be an option or not within their offense. That, to me, makes the most common sense for why they would sign or claim for $1 million, roughly, Baker Mayfield today, because you can now evaluate him against what you already have, and they're already saying that there's a chance he could start against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. So that's my best guess, Chad. Other than that, it was selfish, as you said, just to keep him away from San Francisco.
I don't like it. It's a selfish move by McVay and the Rams. I want my Baker Mayfield in Northern California and not Southern California. So damn you. Damn you, Rams.
Chad, you know what I like? College football's 12-team playoff that we'll get in about a year and a couple months in 2024, 2 years. And looking at the current 12-team playoff, if we had one this year, here's what it would look like. Tennessee hosting Kansas State at Neyland. TCU hosting Tulane. Moving on to the other bracket, Alabama would host USC.
That's awesome.
Yes. and Ohio State would host Penn State.
I dare Caleb Williams to write what he normally writes on his fingernails for Bama. That's a common refrain in the South. Those two words together, I dare him to write that for Will Anderson in that game.
That would trump the Vanderbilt player who was chanting, "We want Bama," after their early start that swiftly ended.
What was the final of that game?
It was like 59-3 or something, right? Was that?
Yeah, I don't even know if they scored. I want to say it was like 55-0.
Fair enough.
62-0.
So, but Georgia would get the winner of Tennessee and Kansas State, and TCU Tulane would move on to face Utah. Michigan gets the winner of Alabama and SC, and then Ohio State gets Ohio State Penn State would get Clemson. I mean, this is a perfect structure, and the debate would be between Team 11. Yeah, who's worthy of Team 11, because Tulane, as the highest non-Power 5 school, would get in automatically as the 12th seed.
I love it, and it's hard to imagine a year once this starts where it's not going to look really cool. This year is a good example. This is the first year we really talked about it, what it would look like
now
with the new format.
Let's add in Utah gets a bye because it's the conference top 4 ranked conference champs.
Puts a lot more emphasis on that conference championship weekend for those teams.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I like.
And the big loser here.
I like that you still protect the top 4, much like the old system, and that they're the ones with the bye. The 4 teams actually playing for the championship now. But these first-round matchups, well, I get more excited thinking about first-round matchups on an actual college campus being hosted by a team in December. I get more excited about that than I do when they start going to the neutral site bowl games.
I also wonder, Chad, think about what the loss to A&M would mean here for LSU. They're out of the 12-team playoff at the end of the year. They would have to win their conference to get in, based on the way the rankings would be this year, which is remarkable considering where they were at 5 overall before the game against A&M.
Yeah, I wish there was some way to avoid a rematch of a conference game in the first round. If I'm nitpicking here, the one thing I don't love is an Ohio State, Penn State rematch, just this time in Columbus. And not Happy Valley. But other than that, this is really cool.
Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. You can join us on the discussion as well with John Robinson, who's fired today as the general manager of the Titans. We will dive into all of the NFL headlines straight ahead. John McLean about to join us from Gallery Sports. We'll scroll through all of the news and notes from Week 13 and look ahead to the final 5-week stretch. Next on OutKick 360.
Coach Dan Mulling is joining us tonight, talking about the CFP rankings that are out, Championship Saturday that is coming up. Happy to have him join us on OutKick. Coach, let's get into it with the rankings that came out this past Tuesday, and we look at the top 3. I think we can all agree on the top 3. 4 USC, right? They slide right in after the win this past weekend. They're sitting in a prime spot going into the championship Saturday against Utah. Ohio State 5. So let's break down the first 5 to me. Do you think that they got it right numerically, just putting Georgia at 1, Michigan 2, or does it really matter right now?
Well, I think it could get tricky, and I think they've left themselves some opportunity. I think you could have easily gone Michigan at 1 just because of the quality of win. If you look at the great win, right now, Georgia's great win over Tennessee. They were a great team. They won at home, won pretty convincingly, and that's their only top 10 win. Now, if you look at the big picture thing, I guess Michigan you can throw out. They won at Ohio State against a great team, equal team, but they also won against Penn State, who the committee seems to value extremely high. So I think you could easily make the argument to have put Michigan at number 1, and I think they could still flip it after this weekend with 1 and 2. I think that's a pretty easy sell right there. TCU at 3, I think, is very easy. I think TCU's in no matter what. Even if they lose, I think they'll still make the playoff at this point. And that gets you then down to, 4 and 5, which, in thinking about it, in reality, you could have easily gone with Ohio State at 4 because you're giving them credit for the Penn State win. and you're giving them credit for if you're going to go that way, you just you put them in the categories. Okay, let's compare USC then Ohio State 4 and 5, the teams you're next to. That you give them, they had they both had a Notre Dame win. USC has a loss to a Utah team who's just outside of the top 10, where Ohio State's loss is to a number 2 team. The Ohio State, again, I think Penn State's ranked way too high, but if the committee's going to put them there and you go through the reality of it, Ohio State probably should be at 4. Now, that being said, the win this weekend by USC, to me, over a Utah team, which is the only team that beat them, would then jump them over Ohio State. And that would solve some of your problems. So I think they just, honestly, it's done out of convenience, because I think if you really think of it, I think you really could have gone Ohio State 4, USC 5, but then the convenience of it is why have to flip them after they win their championship, which would be easy to do, but they don't even have to worry about that.
Would the biggest thing would be, okay, USC winning the Pac-12 championship. Okay, now we can slide them into 4. Even with Ohio State that maybe could have been at 4, would that have been like the way to go? Like if they were trying,
I think they could have easily done it. I think they just probably said, "Hey, why even cause the headache? Put USC at 4. If they win, they get to stay there. If everybody wins out, nothing changes. If one of those, if USC loses, it's easy. Ohio State's the team we're picking to replace them, and." And then I think TCU's a lock. Now, would TCU go to 4 and Ohio State to 3 possibly? But I think TCU's a lock.
NFL news as we welcome you back to OutKick 360. Across the OutKick network, Baker Mayfield claimed by the Los Angeles Rams. And the San Francisco 49ers team doctors through Adam Schefter saying that Garoppolo's not going to need surgery. It's not a Liz Frank injury. And if rehab goes well, he could return in 7 to 8 weeks, making him a potential playoff contributor. John McLean joins us as we hit the headlines. Leading off the headlines today, John Robinson fired as general manager of the Tennessee Titans, who sit atop the AFC South at 7-5, back-to-back losses against the Bengals and the Eagles. We opened the show by saying we were stunned, and everyone here in town is in regards to the organization parting ways with Robinson now. What do you make of the timing of this, and what was your initial reaction personally?
Right quick about Jimmy Garoppolo coming back. Remember, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And he's not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize him getting the biggest payday of his career. So I'm guessing we won't see him again unless they're in the Super Bowl. As far as John, who I did charity events with, and I have the utmost respect for, and he, of course, landed on his feet, and he's walking away with a lot of money because he just got a new contract. I was on my regular Tuesday show in Houston on the Texans flagship. And as they have when there's breaking news with the Texans, this ding, 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 ding went off. And I thought, uh-oh, what have the Texans done now? And when they read me about John, I thought, there's probably nothing else they could have read me that stunned me more than John Robinson being fired. Number one, timing. And people go, oh, all general managers do it this time of year is worry about waivers. Those GMs are worried about free agency. They're worried about the draft. They meet with their pro department, their college department. Now, Cowden's very respected, and he's interviewed for GM jobs, and he might be ready for a GM job. Who knows if he's going to get it? But there's got to be more. Everybody tried to say it's because A.J. Brown. Anybody other than nincompoops knows you can't judge a trade after less than one season. We knew A.J. Brown was great. We knew they were going to miss him. But you got to wait and see what happens to the players they get. A.J. Brown wasn't a first-round pick. So it's ridiculous to think he got fired over that trade, and the timing was interesting considering they just lost to him. There's got to be something else there that Amy Adams Strunk did not like about what John was doing. And I don't know if the truth will ever come out.
Yeah, no, I don't think that he was fired just because A.J. Brown went off against them in this one game. But you mentioned the timing, John. The timing is interesting to me because it's almost a move to it's a show of strength or a show to the fans that, hey, this just happened, and less than 48 hours later, now's the time that we're going to fire John Robinson. So even if it's not that one thing, it certainly looks interesting that happened. And I will say this. The trade right now, I will say, is a failure only because the Titans' goal is to win a Super Bowl. And they're worse right now. You're right that 2-3 years from now, Treylon Burks may be an all-pro. A.J. Brown may be on his way down, and we're looking at this trade differently at that point. And the Titans, may be okay then because there's a new quarterback and this and that. But bottom line is it was a team that was the number one seed in the AFC a year ago. And this year, they're not a contender. They're going to win the AFC South because the AFC South is terrible. And I think we saw another example of that against the Eagles where they're not even competitive in that game.
I agree with most of what you said, Chadlack, and I'll say this. I don't know if GM's been fired this time of year. Not just the fact that he was 22 or 23 games over 500. He's one that went after Mike Vrabel. He knew him very well, and I know some of his picks haven't panned out, but he's made some other good ones, and he worked in lockstep with Mike Vrabel on picks, and we all know Vrabel. Nobody liked trading A.J. Brown. John Robinson didn't like trading A.J. Brown, but as the Eagles and other teams like the Rams have showed, if you really want to keep somebody, you can make it work. And of course, the Titans are worse. I don't think they would have been a Super Bowl contender if they still had A.J. Brown. They would have just won the division more decisively and might have won a playoff game. But right now, they're still going to win it. But it's great defense, not much on the offense. And of course, the Eagles have beaten a lot of teams bad. Key is what do they do from here on out to generate some momentum and some enthusiasm for the playoffs, because they will host a playoff game.
John, and just to get your reaction to the overall just view, the 30,000-foot view, and you know as well as we do how awful this franchise was prior to John Robinson arriving, prior to Amy Adams Strunk being the controlling owner 8 years ago. Vrabel as well. And we know how beloved Robinson was with Strunk, same as Vrabel. And the work that Robinson did in part with Vrabel to rebuild this franchise to a point where they are now, where expectations are as high as they are, and that's and that's a compliment to them, where winning the AFC South isn't good enough, right? You've reached that bar. The bar is now, it's risen to a different level. But what's intriguing about it is on December the 6th, and I'm with you, there's got to be more behind the scenes with this. On December the 6th, they release a paragraph statement, she does, that was, that's what you do for Mike Reinfeldt or Rustin Webster on these awful seasons. That's what you do for Ken Wisenhunt. We're moving on, it's not good enough, we're moving on. This just felt weird, and how everything went down and the timing of it, because behind the scenes, this is not an organization that points a lot of fingers and points things as to why things are going certain ways. They don't make excuses. Vrabel and Robinson talk about next man up. And to be 7-5, even if you believe the results are going to be not good enough, don't you at least wait on the results to happen before you make a change like this? The candidate, if it's not Ryan Cowden, and he's not even technically the GM right now, he's acting GM, but he's keeping his same title. They made that clear in the statement. The candidates right now, John, are in other front offices across the league. So it's not like you get a leg up on that like you would whenever you could actually make a move if you believe you're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs.
This can't be just a football decision. You make those after the season, not when a team's trying to win a division and win a playoff game. And that's why I can't wait to see what it was. We all thought that threesome of Amy Adams, Strong John Robinson, and Mike Vrabel be together for quite a while. And right now, Mike Vrabel's strong enough. Mike has a very strong personality, as you guys know. GM's going to have to work with Mike, and Mike's a hell of a coach. There's a lot of people out there, I think, that would hire Robinson in their personnel department. Immediate speculation here with Nick Caserio, who worked with John forever in New England. Would he try to bring him in the offseason to work with James Lipford, another Patriot who's the head of personnel, Ziegler and McDaniels? In Vegas, would they do it? Jason Light with the Buccaneers. So if John wants to go to work in personnel, he's not going to have any trouble. Problem for him is very few GM jobs come open, and there's been so many open in recent years, we might not see one, or maybe not more than one or two. But I think everybody that knew John while he was a general manager there, knew him before he was a GM there, when he had that brief time with Jason Light at Tampa after he left New England, wishes him the very best and thinks he'll do a really good job. And I hope for the Titans' sake that this move doesn't backfire and they make all the right moves. It's too late to do anything for the rest of this season, and everything will have to be channeled to the offseason, free agency, and the draft.
John, I think too much is made of Mike Vrabel's association with Bill Belichick. There's too much, this is a Belichickian move, and personalities are different. They're different guys, but they believe in some of the same things. I will say, though, one thing I do think they now believe in is control over their own personnel and more of a say in who's being drafted and who's being brought in. What do you think about this move maybe signaling Mike Vrabel not with the GM title, technically, but Mike Vrabel as more of a Belichickian figure with this Titans team, where he's going to have final say and a lot more say on who's drafted and who the Titans bring in from a personnel standpoint?
Well, he won't have the power Belichick has because he controls who has pens and pencils, and he earned that. He earned that right. And in Mike's case, I'll guarantee you that he gave his opinion to John Robinson. And if Mike said, "I absolutely don't want a guy," John didn't bring him in, because then Mike wouldn't play him. And vice versa. If Mike insisted on having a guy, John didn't like him, and then John didn't bring him in. Now a guy like A.J. Brown, trading him, that was a financial decision. And Vrabel didn't like it. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Mike didn't get more influence. There's coaches across the NFL, and I see media say, well, boy, John Lynch drafted. No, John Lynch didn't draft anybody. Kyle Shanahan did, has in his contract. He has final say. Sean Payton had final say on everything in New Orleans. And where he goes, he's going to have final say. Andy Reid has it. Of course, Belichick has it. Pete Carroll has final say on everything. But they still have a general manager. And so I could see that. But whoever it is has got to realize then Mike's going to be running the personnel show. And even though I have the title of GM, I'm really like a personnel director.
John McLean with us. You can follow him at McLean_on_NFL from GallerySports.com. John, the Rams claim Baker Mayfield, and with 5 weeks to go, the thought here is Stafford has a contusion on his spinal cord, apparently, according to Sean McVay. He's already been banged up. He had an elbow issue this offseason. McVay said not being able to throw this offseason affected his overall play. And they're going into another offseason where they don't have draft picks. And this is a chance for them to evaluate Baker Mayfield. Do you buy that that's the reason why they claim him with 5 weeks to play in the regular season for a team that's not going to the postseason?
No, I think they got him because they're desperate. They're having to use a third-string quarterback. They got the worst record of any post-Super Bowl winner. I'm sure they don't want that dubious distinction. There's no way Baker Mayfield's going to start over Stafford if Stafford's healthy next season. Stafford's not going to play anymore this season. I thought the 49ers might do it. They're already down to their third quarterback. Brock Purdy, the rookie, 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. They signed Josh Johnson, who's been with like 40 teams, including several multiple times. And I kind of thought they might do it. But and Kyle Shanahan's a really good quarterback coach, and so is Sean McVay. I think it's very intriguing to bring him out there. But if Cleveland didn't want him and Carolina didn't want him, there's a good chance he's not going to last long there. What he needs to do is have a whole off season with a franchise and go in with the idea is I'm happy to be a backup. Anything you need me to do, I'm ready to go, and convince them that his former role as the first overall pick and the man in Cleveland, he understands it's not going to be that way again.
John, as we sit here today, going into Week 14, are the Cincinnati Bengals the team to beat in the AFC?
I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to beat the Chiefs 2 times. That's hard enough to beat them one. They've done it. They beat them in the playoffs last year. To me, the odds are running out that they're going to keep being able to do it with Lamar Jackson's injury. And he's not playing very well. He picked a bad time not signing a contract extension. The Bengals and the Chiefs would seem, and I haven't given up on Buffalo, those 3 teams, 2 of them will end up in the AFC Championship game, barring monumental upsets. And one thing they all have in common, great young quarterbacks.
Let's talk about the Eagles on the side of that Titans-Eagles game, John. I just continue to be more and more impressed with that team and the different ways they can beat you. Titans loaded up against the run, didn't matter. Jalen Hurts went to work through the air. What do you think of that Eagles team?
Jalen Hurts in his 3rd season, last year, they didn't want him. They wanted Deshaun Watson. And can you imagine if Watson had been there instead of Hurts? And Hurts has improved each year. They're doing a great job of coaching him. His dad's a coach here in Houston, longtime high school coach. He showed he's very coachable no matter what they want him to do. Run, pass, throw the run. He's versatile. He got better in college at Alabama and Oklahoma, and they just better hope he stays healthy. And then Howie Roseman, the general manager's done a good job of filling in around him, not just with A.J. Brown trade, but veterans in the defensive line. Texans with Damian Pierce, he beat them up big time. Rushed for about 138 yards in the game against them. It was 14-14 at halftime. Texans were down by 6 in the 4th quarter before the Eagles scored to put it away. So they had to go out and shore up their run defense, and they did with 2 veterans. And so I like what they've done. They have a veteran team. They can run, they can pass. Can't wait till they play the Cowboys again, because that is going to be a big game with a big audience.
Commanders and Giants as well in the division. And you know, in many cases, poor scheduling happens in the NFL where we get back-to-back matchups over a course of about 3 weeks. In the Commanders' case, they're getting 2 straight games against the Giants because they're on the bye week this week. But here we are because of the tie, where the next game on December the 18th between these 2 franchises, John, effectively is a play-in type scenario for the winner, because of the wild card chase and what it can mean detrimental for the loser of this in a tiebreaker. What do you make of the 2 teams? Who would you bet on right now? Which side are you on, given the fact that we've seen the tie now, 2020, in Week 13?
I think that's why the Giants went for the tie. They knew this. And who would have thought that the Giants and the Commanders would have been any good? I thought they'd battle for last place, and the other one was clearly destined for 3rd, while the Cowboys and Eagles would compete for the division. Right now, top to bottom, that may be the best division ever. We all thought the AFC West was going to be the best, and it's a kind of an old-fashioned division where all of them want to have running games. And the best thing about Philadelphia is the Eagles can run, they can pass, and I still think, boy, the Giants with Daniel Jones, and it's still, you have to shut down Saquon Barkley, just don't have the talent to get in where Washington has gone with Chase Young coming back, 4 defensive linemen taken in the 1st round. Their run defense and their pass rush is outstanding. They have 2 quality running backs, not great quality. And then Taylor Heineke's playing better than anybody thought. They didn't want him. They wanted Carson to win. So I think Washington with Ron Rivera is going to end up being better than the Giants just because Washington seems to have a little more talent on offense.
A Giants win against Washington in Week 15, and this is assuming, by the way, that the Giants lose to the Eagles this week. Just to take that for what it's worth.
That's a good assumption.
Okay. A Giants win against Washington would put the Giants' odds at 82% to make the postseason. Washington would fall to 29%. A Washington win would give the Commanders an 88% chance at the playoffs. The Giants would fall to 18% chance to make the postseason. Another tie would benefit the Commanders. 61% chance compared to the Giants' 31% chance to make the postseason with a second tie in 3 weeks, for what it's worth. John, see if you buy this. I think the Cowboys actually end up in a great spot, and they don't know it because Odell Beckham Jr.'s knee isn't ready fully to sign and join the team yet. The reports are, through Ed Werder, that the team doctors in Dallas believe he wouldn't be necessarily ready until mid-January, and if that's the case, he may not be ready until next season. I don't think they're better with Odell Beckham Jr. because I think it takes away from the run game, and I think this Dallas team is far better going through Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott than through the arm of Dak Prescott as the priority. And I think if you add Odell Beckham Jr., that priority changes a little bit.
That's a great observation, Jonathan. I agree 100%. If Beckham is in the lineup, you're going to feel pressure to get him the ball. I don't know why everybody thinks he's the be-all, end-all. He's coming off a second consecutive scope. He's bounced around the NFL, but people act like he's the second coming. Maybe he will be next year, but it would be so unfair to expect him to miss all season and come in and catch everything thrown to him. And you're right. This time of year and in the playoffs, they better rely on Pollard and Elliott. And it is Pollard and Elliott, not Elliott and Pollard. And when you think about how Dak Prescott played the playoffs last year, they better hope he plays a whole lot better. I'd love to see the Cowboys and the Eagles end up having to play 3 times. It's a great rivalry, and both of them have different strengths to throw against the other team. I can't wait to see them play. And then when you're talking about the Giants and Commanders, the bottom line is that is a big game. And who would have thunk it?
Yeah, and so, as you mentioned, so is the Christmas Eve matchup between the Cowboys and the Eagles. John, describe for us the scene in Houston as Deshaun Watson took the field for the first time after that opening possession interception.
Stadium was about half full, as we thought it would be. And when he came out on the field for the first time in pregame, he was booed. Every time he went up to the line of scrimmage, he was booed. He played terribly, but that's to be expected. Been 700 days since he'd thrown a pass. There were a lot of ingenious signs in and outside the stadium, and the Texans didn't do anything to try to remove them. The best one I saw was some women had this big sign. It had the Predator from the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the face on the Predator was Deshaun Watson. And in pre-games, when he went out right before the start of the game, he saw Cal and Hannah McNair, the owners, along with Janice McNair, and he went over to shake their hand, and Hannah turned her back to him. And Cal shook it briefly, and then he went back onto the field. But Hannah McNair got a lot of praise for turning her back on Deshaun Watson.
And good for her on that one. So I'm watching the game. You said about half full. I think you may be even being a little bit generous when I look at that crowd. And I don't blame anyone for not going to these games, John, at all at this point. Is that fan base in Houston, is this and we've seen this some in Nashville with the Titans too, is this a ticket sold but unused issue where it's season ticket holders not going, or is this a ticket sales issue this year? And has there been any level of irreparable damage done to some in that fan base with what's gone on with just really kind of a clown show starting with Deshaun Watson not wanting to play there in Houston?
Cadillac, no damage is done irreparable. If you win, fans come back. The bottom line is my lead on my column after the game for GallerySports.com was the Texans are sucking the spirit out of Christmas. And they are, because their offense with Pep Hamilton is the worst I've seen in franchise history. Their offense has given up 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. The defense has given up 3 touchdowns in last 3 games. And the offense, Kyle Allen is worse than Davis Mills. And I blame Mills' regression on Pep Hamilton, the first-year coordinator. You guys can tell Tim Kelly, all those fans and media booing him last year because they wanted a new coordinator. They would probably pay him to come back to town. And so right now, I think they're going to clean house on the coaching staff. People here want D'Amico Ryans, one of the all-time popular players, the red-hot coordinator, defensive coordinator for the 49ers, to be hired to have first pick in the draft a quarterback like Bryce Young, and just start over. But the defense is not the issue. It's the offense. And really, it started with the Titans game. They just totally dominated that offense, and they started with the interior offensive line to shut down the run. And right now, they can't do squat.
John, finally, what'd you make of Brady's comeback last night, down, 16-3, and ends up going to win 17-16?
Every time I think he's done, John, he comes up with something. Every time I make the mistake of thinking that, here comes Brady.
I got up, I said it's over, put on my cap, went outside, walked about 2 miles, came back, couldn't believe it. Don't know why I couldn't believe it. It's Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback in NFL history, and he kept them in first place. Their offense is not very good. I thought people don't want to play him in the playoffs, and I think they still don't want to play him in the playoffs. But, man, he's still capable of beating just about anybody. But 3 points for most of the game, that was so un-Brady-like, and then he unleashed the beast.
Unusual move. They've released Jalen Darden from their roster today. The Bucs have, the day after their Monday Night Football game. And that's interesting because he's a return specialist. So I guess they're going to use Rashard White there because Leonard Fournette's back healthy. But again, unusual to see the return specialist let go in December. John, thank you as always. Loving the work at gallerysports.com, and we'll catch up soon.
Hey, tell Mattress Mac we said hi.
I'll do that. I'm seeing him. He's introducing the Lombardi finalists tomorrow night for the Rody Lombardi banquet. I'm presenting an award. I'll tell him you said that. Guys, thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Yep, same here. There's John McClain. McClain_on_NFL. Add a few other underscores if you'd like.
The man gets it done. Multiple underscores or not, the guy gets it done every time.
I'll admit the player that announces he's returning to the SEC is surprising. It's next on OutKick 360.
2 teams went out. One was actually a team from the unit that I now play on TV that was attached to us. They went out. They went on the front side, or went around to go to the front side of this other house, and my team was basically going towards the back side of the house. So very shortly, what happened was it was the wrong house, and when we hit that one house, the actual house it was, which was next door, which is not exactly next door because Sutter City is kind of weird of how it's built. But, they heard us. They were getting ready, prepping, their gear, and so they were ready to go. So when that team came around, a bunch of dudes opened up out of the front, what I assume would be the living room, with AKs and shot. I think they shot 3. If I'm not mistaken, they shot 3 of the members of that team. 2 of them were pretty much out of the fight at that point. But they were, it was heavy. I wasn't on that side of the house, but just hearing it, I was like, oh man, that's extreme. So I ran into the back door, which came into the kitchen, cleared through there, went in the hallway, and those same guys, as we approached that room, shot through the walls of that hallway, shot the guy literally right next to me. So then we backed off, and then we were and I'd have to draw it out, but we were in a tactical position that was just there wasn't a lot we could do. So we were trying to kind of figure out how to solve it. And the next thing I know, I remember just the whole room, or actually it wasn't really a room, it was the hallway, so it was more like a tube straight at me, and just everything exploded. And I actually remember hitting the ground and looking up down the hallway. And I was just confused. I didn't know what had happened. And I can say, getting shot at, okay. It's one thing, but the explosion made me feel small. It was like a superhero just grabbed me and was like, or it was like the Hulk grabbed me and was like, it felt like a supernatural power. And it blew, so it was a nighttime hit. It blew my nods and my nod mount off my face. So I went from, under nods to not being able to see anything. It obviously, my arm, I thought it blew off. I'm trying to think of what else it wrecked, but wrecked several things. But, and everything was pitch black for me, and I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt my arm was blown off. So I got up and walked outside to the back, and there was a wall that we had hopped to get in. That wasn't happening. So I just put my back against the wall and tried to take care of myself. But I never lost consciousness. The only time actually I did lose consciousness is when, and I still to this day don't know how they got me over that wall. I have no idea. But other than that, probably 5 minutes that they got me over the wall, I never lost consciousness.
Shannon Terry, founder of On3’s Sports, will join us in roughly 10 minutes on the show. Looking forward to that. OutKick 360 rolls on. We open the show by saying we're stunned that John Robinson, Titans general manager, was fired today, and we are. I am really surprised about our next discussion. Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver for LSU, is returning to LSU next season. Chad, for a number of reasons. I think first and foremost, he is right there in line with Pittman and Addison, Johnson, and others that are amongst the most talented NFL prospects. And for the majority of the season, he wasn't a feature of the offense. right? Like that's the other thing that's very surprising about it. I'm surprised he's not going to the draft. I guess I'm also surprised he's not like looking around a bit. But hey, this is great for LSU because he is legitimately one of the top wide receivers in the country, just pure talent. And when he's on, he's on.
Remember, what did he do? Did he take the stuff off? Did he do the old thing where you take the LSU stuff off of your bio?
He did that
on social media after one game this year, and everybody thought, okay,
he's out.
He's gone. He's going somewhere else.
And he said he was doing it for distraction purposes.
But Brian Kelly, being the savvy old vet that Brian Kelly is, as the year went on, he got a little bit more involved. I remember he had a couple of catches against Tennessee, and it was, hey, Kayshon Boutte still not a big factor here, but starting to come along. He had the touchdown early against Georgia in the SEC championship on the long reception. So they started to move him more into the offense as the year went along. And for that reason, I think that he got enough touches. He's happy enough. He likes Brian Kelly and the staff and their development enough where he's going to come back and give another shot. But I'm with you. It's almost where you get more surprised when top talent announces they are staying. If there's any announcement, it's usually I'm leaving.
Yes.
Or there's no announcement and guys are just staying put. That's becoming more and more rare, though, the no announcement.
This is the case where perception is not reality. Because I would have painted him to a corner of a diva wide receiver who's doing that, and is pouting about not getting the football. Again, outside perspective is not reality in this case. Based on his statement, my growth under the new staff has helped me reach new levels. While we did not achieve the overall goal, we still fought and produced results that will be stepping stones for the future success. The goal has always win a national championship at LSU. That will never change. We made strides this year, but ultimately fell short. That's why I believe we could accomplish many things moving forward. And keep in mind, he also wears number 7, which is a cherished number of that program. And coming back for his senior year, where he says, and the quote was, "It's important to follow your dreams and live with results. While some stories end here, mine will not." You don't see that nowadays, right? At best, you see guys stay in college football, but not with the team they're on, a.k.a. Jordan Addison.
Well, and so another example, news story today, Jalen Hyatt, receiver at Tennessee. This is, to me, is where NIL strikes, and it makes so much sense. Hyatt Hotels is going to do an NIL endorsement with Jalen Hyatt, and as part of this NIL endorsement, Jalen Hyatt is gifting the entire Tennessee football team a week's stay in Miami over Orange Bowl weekend. I initially read this and thought, well, the school and the bowl will pay for their stay, and they're going to be there for a week. So it must just be like a free trip anywhere that's the equivalent to South Beach for another week. But my understanding is it's to get the families of every player there to stay for free. So they posted a tweet, him and his dad, about, we understand how difficult it is for families to go somewhere for a weekend to watch their sons play. So this, through Hyatt Hotels, is part of the NIL endorsement. We're paying for every family to come stay in Miami for a week and watch their son play in the Orange Bowl. That's really cool. I mean, this is one that I'm not really that jaded about because, it's Hyatt Hotels.
Makes total sense.
And Jalen Hyatt. It's an actual mutually beneficial NIL endorsement where he's going to make some money, and this is going to happen. Now, I would like to know how much money is involved here. And is this a deal that gets Jalen Hyatt to definitely play in the Orange Bowl, which now we know will happen with this?
Right.
Or is this a deal to get Jalen Hyatt to not be a second or third round NFL draft pick and to come back to Knoxville next year for another season?
I would think both right now.
We'll have to wait and see.
Because Jalen Hyatt...
There's been no announcement made. He's just going to review things and then come up with a decision.
I'm comparing the two stories here with coming back. Like, one is a legitimate first-round talent. Jalen Hyatt can be.
Jalen Hyatt, I saw one projection.
That's
trying
why
to remember who did it. He was very late first round in one of the projections that I've seen. But most of them, it's second or third round.
If you have the chance to make some NIL money like this and come back and then improve your draft stock, you're doing that, right? I'm not sure how much Kayshon can improve his draft stock at LSU. And again, it's already really good.
The choice was, if I had the year Jalen Hyatt just had, he's a Biletnikoff Award finalist. He had 5 touchdowns against Alabama in a game.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could be really good at Tennessee, and I've done it before. If you're making some money from Hyatt Hotels and whoever else, I would absolutely come back to college. For anyone, Kayshon Boutte, anyone out there. I would come back to college, continue to develop, and try to work my way into a first-round draft pick if I was widely considered to be a second or third-round pick.
Yeah.
If you're a guaranteed first-rounder,
you go.
You go.
And does this impact does the Keyshawn
It's hard to get the
news?
NIL money to make it make sense to pass up a first-round opportunity.
Yeah.
If you know you're in the first round.
And maybe the money's so good it doesn't impact it, but I wonder if the Keyshawn Booty news affects Hyatt at all. It's one less top receiver on the board.
I think that Hyatt hotel money, though, probably affects his decision even more than that.
That's right.
But still, no firm announcement one way or the other from him like you got from Keyshawn Booty.
On3 Sports has a new transfer portal ranking. The founder of On3, Shannon Terry, leads off hour number 3 with us. That's next on OutKick 360.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking that we're going to be practicing the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all of this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Hour number 3, glad you're with us across the network and streaming live at OutKick.com with Chad Withrow, Jonathan Hutton with you. 6th and Peabody, our location, Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. And there are a handful of guests that give us energy based on the grind that they bring every single day to their work. And I still don't know how this guy continues to do it day after day with On3 Sports now, after Rivals and 24/7 have been massive successes. Outsider brand is everywhere now. And, Chad, we've now got some transfer portal rankings. Shannon Terry joined us.
He's a man that does it all. Shannon Terry, a buddy of ours. And this is really cool, Shannon. We saw this tweet, and this is being released today. I'm going to read your tweet because it perfectly describes what you guys have going on. On3 releasing the transfer portal ranking, first of its kind algorithm that weighs transfers in and transfers out in a plus-minus system, and you're reminding people the best in-shape programs probably won't win the transfer portal. They just don't want to lose ground, which I think is important to keep in mind also. Shannon, thanks for hopping on with us, and it's amazing to see how the transfer portal has transformed the sport we love so much.
Yeah, it's a new game in college sports. Guys, first of all, thanks for having me on. Just landed at the beautiful Bellagio Hotel here in Vegas. They say it's a non-smoking room, but I'm not buying it. So it's going to hang in. And,
for you or the previous person that was there.
I don't think I could have a cigarette. That's
well, I know you like cigars though. Yeah. Okay.
My mom would kill me. But,
okay. Fair enough.
No smoking here tonight. Transfer portal. It's amazing. It's changed college sports in so many ways. We saw it with USC this year. We also saw it with Georgia. We saw it with a program that didn't hardly do anything with transfers, if any. I can't recall if they even had one. And that's something that Kirby spoke about. It was more about, player development and recruiting and, in the underswell we're hearing with Alabama this year, not a lot maybe in the transfer portal focus because they're targeted on a recruiting class. So all programs are going to activate this different. And I think the very first fundamental rule with transfer portal, it is not like recruiting in the sense that the teams that typically are going to win the transfer portal probably are going to need to, and your programs that have a lot of continuity, development, good recruiting classes that are doing well, probably are going to place high. So we built our algorithm in that fashion.
It's added so much uncertainty for fans when you look at just how you project from season to season. And we've joked about this before, Shannon. I don't even look to see what class a guy is at a school. I don't even know half the time because year to year, everyone could be going somewhere else. But there's also that sense of hope with it that, this is going to be a problem spot, but there's the portal. Now it works the other way also. This looks like a strength, the receiving core next year for favorite team, but the portal could affect them. I'm sure when you're working in your business with On3 Sports and watching those different team websites, you see the interest in all of that raise from year to year, off season to off season. What does that increase look like for you guys?
One of the advantages we have is that we're a team-based market. So we have all these reporters in markets, and so we get to hear the stories kind of throughout the year and have a good idea of what's going to happen. Right as it's happening or before it's happening. And what we're seeing is really interesting as it relates to the portal. First thing this year that we have seen is that we have seen the schools, and I'm not going to name any names right now because I don't want to get in trouble, and I'm working with a lot of them. The schools that have been ahead of the game with their collectives, okay, been out front, proactive, not this wait and see. You're going to see a lot of stability and continuity in their programs. And I will name one, Tennessee. They've got 4 or 5 kids, I think, that are entered. No surprises whatsoever. I think it would be safe to assume they took care of business, a couple weeks ago, and they've been noticeably out in front as it relates to, the sophistication and the structure of their collectives. That's not all the case there are a lot of big time programs, believe it or not, again, not to name any names, that are way behind right now. So that's the first thing you're seeing. So the consequence of that is that even though there's 1,000 athletes that have entered the portal over these first couple days, I haven't seen the extreme quality maybe that I expected that's hit the marketplace today. And I think a lot of that has to do, with some of these programs have gone in, they've done their work before this magical day happened.
Shannon Terry with us on 3 Sports. Shannon, you certainly know how the internet and everything grew the recruiting world, and you were the first in there with Rivals to jump in there, and the frenzy and the fervor for the college football fan base covering high school juniors and seniors and where they're going to end up. That process, originally, and it feels like forever ago, led up to a big signing day in February, and there was this grand, big deal about where kids were going. This 45-day window now, is this going to be bigger than even signing day was? Are we about to see even more of an attraction to On3 because of the transfer portal itself and how quickly programs and fan bases can transform expectations?
Absolutely. I mean, I love it. We started On3 2 years ago, and look, I've done this for 27 years. And so there was a lot of debate whether I was going to get back into sports media. People close to me actually didn't want me to even touch it. They wanted me to slow down and stuff. But there were a couple factors that led us to start On3. And the first was around NIL and transfer portal. I mean, we knew, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there's going to be a perfect storm of news and stories. And that doesn't even have anything to do with playoff expansion and all that's going on there. So signing day got fractured a little bit, when they went to 2 signing days, but there's a window now with transfer portal through NIL and recruiting. It's a phenomenal time to be in the business. And I mean, there's no rest for us. We're so excited about what On3 is doing. We've been in business for 15 months. It's growing about 5 times faster than 24/7, which grew significantly faster than Rivals. We're just trying to hold on for dear life right now.
It's definitely a great time for us in sports media covering college sports. Do you think it's a good time to be in college coaching? And I asked from this perspective because we had Clark Lee in studio last week, and of course Vanderbilt head coach, and he was very open talking about, hey, I got one guy that multiple teams or someone represented teams reached out to, and this is just something that goes on and something that's going to happen, especially if you're a team that traditionally has not had the same level of success as some others out there. How frustrating do you think that is for college coaches, and how much more difficult has the transfer portal and NIL made their jobs?
Let me look at it a little different way. Okay, so the unintended consequence of NIL/transfer portal is that you now have an athlete that is taking education, financial literacy, life skills to a whole new level. And so when you sit down and you talk to these young men and women now, they're listening in class. They're looking to do deals. They're on YouTube learning about, taxes and finance and all the things. So you're speeding up, and here's the other thing. I've got a lot of friends that played pro sports. Everyone else was like, I didn't have a clue until my second contract. I think NIL is speeding up the emotional life skills maturity of athletes by as much as a decade. Okay. So if you're getting a preponderance of more athletes now that are more advanced, listening, they're developing life skills, they're maturing, they're growing, there's going to be a residual effect to that to society. Okay. And there's going to be an effect to that in the locker room and with these coaches. So I personally believe, to start with, NIL, and I know these athletes have enormous benefits: training tables, unlimited gear, connections, and the list goes on, free education. NIL's the absolute one of the best things to happen to student athletes for that education life piece. Okay, from a coaching perspective, they've got to deal with it now. And so, they've got to have their house in order in a world where they really don't even understand the rules. And so where I feel for the coaches in the schools from the perspective of I don't feel for them in the perspective of their relationships and the development and having to treat the athletes a certain way. I do feel for them because of the ambiguity in the rules and the compliance and what they can and can't do. And so in conclusion here, it's an inefficient marketplace right now. And I think it'll take a couple years to work out, but all the naysayers, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think everyone's going to find their place through this.
For years and years, first off, another great part about this time of year is coaching searches and coaching hires. And there's some going on right now, and it's very beneficial to your industry, I know, with On3 Sports, Shannon. But for years and years, it was, all right, if you're going to interview a coach, what's your track record, but what's your offense, what's your defense, what's your recruiting plan? And now it's what's your offense, what's your defense, what's your recruiting plan, how do you attack the portal, and what's your plan for NIL? And what are your assistant coaches' plan for NIL? And are you going to embrace NIL? And that goes with every job, whether you're Deion Sanders at Colorado or Hugh Freeze at Auburn or Alex Golish at South Florida. You talk to a lot of coaches and you employ a lot of people, Shannon, that talk to coaches with these different websites. How big of a factor is that in terms of how they interview for jobs and maybe more importantly, what athletic directors, what school presidents, the questions they're asking them about this facet of their program?
There's so much to unpack here. The first is on the flip side when coaches are coveted and they've got choices of schools. I think one of the things, it's always been about the relationships with the athletic director and the president. And I think that relationship and that connection now is more important than ever, between the coach and the administration. And so that is definitely a factor. The other piece here, if I'm a coach, and I'm looking at a job, you can bet that I'm going to really dig in and find out about that support infrastructure around that collective, and then what the school is doing on the brand sponsorships, group licensing side. Because the school, when you look at who touches the NIL process within an administration, it's like 10 different people are part of that process from like 4 different divisions of the school. So it's not just the athletic department. It's not just the football team. There's so many people involved in that. And then who are they working with outside? Who are their, third parties that they're doing business with? There's a big play there. Here's an interesting concept. And I don't know if this is going to work, but if I was a head coach, I would go try to hire a badass general manager, because it gets to a point where there's becoming so much operational. There's so much operational things now that are at the highest priority. I think that the scope of what a head coach can and can't do and have time for maybe is getting beyond their skill package into more of your corporate C-suite type executives, even if you take out the talent evaluation side of it. But I think a general manager, a powerful general manager or a COO is going to have to be kind of the next wave that we get into in college sports.
So you started, Shannon, with the star rating at Rivals. You end up with a composite ranking at 24/7. How do you determine the ranking system here for the portal?
It's, this is the great thing we've been doing since we launched the On3 NIL valuation, which is, this really complex algorithm that determines what athletes are valued by looking at all the collectives and the NIL marketplace and the kind of the influencer network. We knew from the start that what we had to do would rate and rank college players. And so even though we don't publish that data, we have a team of scouts behind the scenes that are former, that worked in schools, that are former scouts, that actually position rank all of the college, not all of them, a majority of the college players by position. And then, because positions have different values. And so the portal rating is heavily driven by their college player rating with a default fallback to their recruit rating, which is kind of more of a ceiling. And so that data that we've been building for the first 15 months for NIL naturally walked us into the transfer portal ratings, rankings, and algorithm.
You know, I'm fascinated by what you're talking about, the general manager. I mentioned Clark Lee earlier. He's got Barton Simmons, who you know well, as his GM. John Robinson gets fired today from the Titans. And as you're talking, Shannon, I'm thinking, you know, if John Robinson didn't immediately get an NFL job, what college program wouldn't be interested in John Robinson, someone who was a successful GM in the NFL that could come in and talk to guys about development to get ready for the next level? But it also takes a layer of responsibility off the coach from a media perspective. So many of these guys get bogged down. I think at times we see less and less of coaches doing interviews. Maybe they're doing something on social media, but their time wears thin, where if you had a semi-famous general manager, they could carry the torch with some of that part of the job also. You just got me thinking about that on multiple levels of possibilities for some bigger programs.
Let me give you a bigger reason. A bigger reason is when programs become successful, what's the first thing that happens to their assistant coaches and their coordinators?
They get rated.
They get rated. And so if you're a head coach, you know, you look at the problems that Saban has had. Okay. You know, Saban has some great classes and he has some missed classes and some great classes. He's had to deal with lack of coaching continuity. Like it's unbelievable how successful Alabama has been, considering how many different coordinators and coaches. Well, think of the disruption through the recruiting process. So another reason a coach or a head coach, in my opinion, needs that strong number 2 in place is because you're going to see less and less continuity as we go forward. I mean, you know, everyone wants success right now. And the way you get success right now is dump what you've got and get the next shiny toy. And so, you know, you bring that C-suite, you know, kind of right hand into an organization that can wear a lot of those hats. I think it would help keep a lot of the processes in place, especially around recruiting, transfer portal, and NIL, which, by the way, are the 3 primary focuses of On3.
Do you think if a coach is a good high school recruiter, he's a good transfer portal recruiter?
I think transfer portal is the easiest thing because you've got, you know, and I think coaches also would rather look at the transfer portal in most cases than they would recruiting, because you have a body of work of an athlete playing in front of X thousand people against, you know, developed people. And so you're going to see things like transfer portal combines. You're going to see a lot of things pop up from this. But I personally believe you don't have as much ceiling with a lot of those kids. You know, maybe the luster is kind of gone, but you have a lot of consistency in that evaluation process.
And you can see them immediately. You know,
see them immediately.
Yeah, results. Job savers in some cases.
Quarterback could be, yeah.
Quarterback could be. I'm really curious how the offensive linemen are going to play out in years in the portal. That's such a hard position, you know, to come in, you know, a lot of cases and, you know, start working with guys and start, you know, immediately. So we're gonna learn a lot over the next couple of years. But what's not going to happen is fundamental changes to the fact that athletes are going to have the ability to earn money, and athletes are going to have the ability to go where they want to go. Those two things, they're not changing. So buckle up.
Shannon Terry has been our guest, joining us from Vegas at the Bellagio. What's on tap for you immediately after this?
Sports Business Conference. I get the opportunity to host 2 panels, which I'm going to absolutely suck at because it's not really my jam, but I'm not like you guys, but I'll give it a shot. So I'm doing that tomorrow. Tonight I'm going to hit Delmonico's Steakhouse.
Nice.
I hear it's pretty
love that.
Grant Furky, Go Vol said that's the one you got to go to. So
Grant would know. The man is a world traveler. He knows all the good spots.
Speaking of general managers, he's the general manager of good advice. So I take it. Yeah,
he may be Tennessee's next GM too. Who knows?
You got to hire him away from Shannon.
He's a heck of a young man, and I hear he's got some big news coming out here pretty soon. So
okay,
maybe have him on.
Yeah. Well,
hey, good luck,
absolutely.
Shannon, being the question asker on the panel, not the question answerer.
Yes.
I feel like you're accustomed to that role, but asking the questions may be a little different for you.
I'm actually doing 2 panels, and I promise you this: I'm going to suck at unbelievable level. level. So
I highly doubt that. The one thing that will not suck for sure is Delmonico Steakhouse. So enjoy that
I
part.
can't wait to get there.
Hey, always appreciate it, man. You never
Love
disappoint
you
on the
guys,
show.
man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
There's
See you
Shannon
guys.
Terry.
Thanks.
On3 Sports. There's the next successful venture of Shannon Terry.
That
crushing
and
it.
the probably $400 steak he's going to devour tonight.
Yeah,
Both successful
$400
ventures.
steak. I was a bit surprised he wasn't in like the more palatial suite there at the hotel.
Well, it sounded to me like he was going to be moving rooms shortly after that. I don't think he appreciated the smoke smell. I wouldn't either. I am not a smoke smell guy. So if you can smell that right away, my guess is that he will be in a suite at the Bellagio very shortly.
No doubt. And I mean, knowing Shannon, from Rivals 24/7, and again, he repeated it, but he just changed the process of ranking. Right, it's just a composite ranking instead of your own star ranking. He will develop all this, sell it, and then he'll come up with his own composite ranking for this years from now.
Well, he'll have, a different algorithm. They'll just keep coming up with algorithms that will continue
the next process
to
and
make
everyone
him
else will
successful.
mimic.
The
That's
man's he's a smart dude,
No
and
doubt.
I always feel like I learn something every time we talk to him. But he's right about that. I was at a speaking engagement earlier today, and a lot of questions about NIL and portal, and is it good for the sport? And my response was, well, I'm a traditionalist from a college football standpoint, but you have to acknowledge this isn't changing. And just like you said, one thing you got to embrace is players are going to have the right and the ability to do what they want and move where they want moving forward. So you have to be willing to understand that.
And think about the ability to log on and see the updated portal list and where you are at your favorite team and where you rank and the players you're after, and the crystal ball. And knowing that we've already seen the fever pitch for the high school recruiting in that same manner and what they're creating here with the ranking system. Everyone loves rankings, lists. And that's what he's doing here with the transfer portal that continues to grow by the day. And that Davey Hudson's trying to keep up with minute by minute, especially at the quarterback position.
Well, and just the plus minus formula. Because like you said, the really good teams, you just want to stay close to even. You don't want to lose too much. Because you're going to lose no matter what because you're already so good. Those that are way down, you add 4 or 5 transfers and boom, your plus rating is way up there. May not be, though, indicative of how good of a team you're going to be the next year.
The NFL playoff picture when we return, and consider in the AFC, one team benched their 5-2 starting quarterback because they didn't think they were going to make the postseason but continued to start. And a division leader in the Titans fired their general manager today with 5 games remaining, knowing that they're going to win the AFC South. They clinch with a win over Jacksonville this week. That's next on OutKick 360.
Coach Dan Mulling is joining us tonight, talking about the CFP rankings that are out, championship Saturday that is coming up. Happy to have him join us on OutKick. Coach, let's get into it with the rankings that came out this past Tuesday. And we look at the top 3. I think we can all agree on the top 3. 4 USC, right. They slide right in after the win this past weekend. They're sitting in a prime spot going into the championship Saturday against Utah. Ohio State 5. So let's break down the first 5 to me. Do you think that they got it right numerically, just putting Georgia at 1, Michigan 2, or does it really matter right now?
Well, I think it could get tricky, and I think they've left themselves some opportunity. I think you could have easily gone Michigan at 1 just because of the quality of win. If you look at the great win, right now, Georgia's great win over Tennessee. They were a great team. They won at home, won pretty convincingly, and that's their only top 10 win. Now, if you look at the big picture thing, I guess Michigan you can throw out. They won at Ohio State against a great team, equal team, but they also won against Penn State, who the committee seems to value extremely high. So I think you could easily make the argument to have put Michigan at number 1, and I think they could still flip it after this weekend with 1 and 2. I think that's a pretty easy sell right there. TCU at 3, I think, is very easy. I think TCU's in no matter what. Even if they lose, I think they'll still make the playoff at this point. And that gets you then down to, 4 and 5, which, In thinking about it, in reality, you could have easily gone with Ohio State at 4 because you're giving them credit for the Penn State win, and you're giving them credit for if you're going to go that way, you put them in the categories. Okay, let's compare USC then Ohio State 4 and 5, the teams you're next to. They had they both had a Notre Dame win. USC has a loss to a Utah team who's just outside of the top 10, where Ohio State's loss is to a number 2 team. The Ohio State, again, I think Penn State's ranked way too high, but if the committee's going to put them there and you go through the reality of it, Ohio State probably should be at 4. Now, that being said, the win this weekend by USC, to me, over a Utah team, which is the only team that beat them, would then jump them over Ohio State. And that would solve some of your problems. So I think they just, honestly, it's done out of convenience, because I think if you really think of it, I think you really could have gone Ohio State 4, USC 5, but then the convenience of it is why have to flip them after they win their championship, which would be easy to do, but they don't even have to worry about that.
Would the biggest thing would be, okay, USC winning the Pac-12 championship, okay, now we can slide them into 4, even with Ohio State that maybe could have been at 4. Would that have been like the way to go? Like if they were trying?
I think they could have easily done it. I think they just probably said, hey, why even cause the headache? Put USC at 4. If they win, they get to stay there. If everybody wins out, nothing changes. If one of those, if USC loses, it's easy. Ohio State's the team we're picking to replace them. And then I think TCU's a lock. Now would TCU go to 4 and Ohio State to 3 possibly? But I think TCU's a lock.
OutKick 360 rolls on. NFL playoff picture in just a moment. But first, big news in Major League Baseball, Chad.
John Heyman. Let me see here. Make sure he's not deleted this tweet.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
He is not.
Okay.
So John Heyman, 8 minutes ago, John Heyman covers the Yankees for the New York Post. You have to always double check.
Yes,
because even blue check marks can be purchased now, right? So you never know. He's got 806,000 followers, so this is the beat writer for the Yankees.
Read this because I'm glad you double-checked this because he's tweeted something else since then.
He tweeted 8 minutes ago, Aaron Judge appears headed to the Giants, but because of an autocorrect problem, it says Arson Judge appears headed to Giants, which has sparked, pun intended, a ton of jokes about Arson Judge lighting the hopes and dreams of Yankees fans ablaze.
Now,
and then people saying that he was on fire last year.
John Heyman then tweets out a minute ago.
Oh, no.
Giants say they have not heard on Aaron Judge. And then he apologizes for jumping the gun. So he's not saying his report is inaccurate. He's saying he just broke the news to the San Francisco Giants that Aaron Judge is joining their franchise.
Yeah, I think, well,
That's how I
obviously
read this.
he's talking to a Yankees source that he trusts. He's the Yankees beat writer.
Wow.
The Yankees believe they've been informed that Aaron Judge is going to sign with the Giants.
Can you imagine being the Giants right now? Like, oh, we're getting Judge?
Just everyone in their office is, hey, who's this Heyman guy? Is he reliable? They're all Googling John Heyman right now to see how many stories he's been accurate about, hoping that he's accurate about this one.
Oh, yeah. Gary Sheffield Jr. with a great tweet. I refuse to believe any of these reports until one of the real reporters says something. John can't even spell.
Arson Judge should take off.
I'll wait for Jeff, and then we'll get mad about this.
There should be T-shirts made if he's a giant with him as an arsonist.
The arson's going to take place in New York.
The Bronx will burn once again.
Yeah. If this is confirmed, we will pass it on as the show continues. It's been a very fast-paced show.
Yeah, a lot of news. Very newsy Tuesday. It's been a news day, if you will. Hutton, this also some more news. Barry Odom, former Missouri head coach, current Arkansas defensive coordinator, is leaving to be the head coach at UNLV. Maybe he'll be at Delmonico Steakhouse tonight with Shannon Terry to celebrate. But Barry Odom back into the head coaching ranks, will leave Arkansas as defensive coordinator to be head coach at UNLV. He's a big part of Sam Pittman's success at Arkansas.
And
that's a big position to fill.
Last year, they were one of 3 or 4 programs, I believe, total, that did not have a single change on their coaching staff whatsoever. And the big ones, of course, coordinator with Odom and then Kendall Briles. And it didn't pay off. And a big part of that, I think, is Jefferson's injury and health concerns and not really knowing how healthy he was. But still, a drop-off. He's going to be missed. You're right. He's a big reason why
big part of
the
what
identity fit at Arkansas. Yeah. The AFC playoff picture, extremely intriguing because you have a 7-5 Tennessee Titans team in the 4 seed right now, where Vrabel admits after they lose to the Eagles and back-to-back losses to the Bengals and the Eagles that they're at a crossroads where they got to figure out how to play their best football this time of year. And right now they're not playing like a good football team. Paraphrasing, but that's what he's saying. 2 days later, general manager John Robinson fired. And that is certainly out of the ordinary, timing-wise, for GMs to hit the curb, especially ones that are about to win their division. As we head into Week 14, though, the Bills get the first-round bye. They benefit from the Bengals win over Kansas City. They win on Thursday Night Football, and by virtue of a tiebreaker, they win the most, even though they didn't play on Sunday. They played last Thursday. They have the first-round bye. So, Chad, last week we were talking about the Bills going on the road. Today we're talking about the Bills having home field advantage, which is where the expectations were in Week 1. They're right back there again. Chiefs would host the Jets right now. The Jets remain in as the 7 seed. And going into break, I said, you've got one AFC contender, quote-unquote contender, that is in the playoff mix. They're leading their division. They just fired their GM at 7-5. Meanwhile, you have Zach Wilson, who is 5-2 as the starting quarterback. They weren't 5-2 because of Zach Wilson. But Robert Saleh made the move. He's benched Wilson in favor of Mike White. And while Mike White, the first half was a lot was to be desired, he did pick up the offense in the second half. And you see where, despite the loss to Minnesota, you see where the Jets have more life and more capabilities with the arm of Mike White compared to what we've seen so far from Zach Wilson. They're the 7 seed. On the road, though, matchups, the Ravens win 10-9 over Denver. And by virtue of that win with Huntley at quarterback, they would host right now as the AFC North leader, the Miami Dolphins, who fell to 8-4 after their loss to the San Francisco 49ers. And again, the Titans would host the Bengals. This is a great bracket as it stands right now.
I love this. Dolphins-Ravens in Baltimore, my favorite matchup of this one. Not overly giddy about Cincinnati and Nashville again to take on the Titans in the first round, but Jets at Chiefs would be incredible. Again, this if the season ended today. And you mentioned the Bills' home field advantage, Hutton. That is huge. And it would be the Bills rooting for bad weather, but not awful weather. Why? Because if it snows too much, as we've seen, they might have to move a playoff game to Detroit. I don't think Detroit's going to be in the playoffs, so that their building's going to be open. But can you? I mean, the first thing I thought of when I saw the news about the snow moving in and moving the game was, what if this happens in January? And all of that work to build that home field advantage in Western New York in front of the Bills Mafia, breaking frozen tables before the game in a tailgate, to have bad weather, a team going up there.
You're right.
And to have that advantage to be wiped away because the league would have to move a game because the weather gets too bad.
Well, what it would do, so the scenario there that you're talking about, the league, I mean, we knew for about a week out that storm was going to hit, right? That's why they moved it, because they were concerned with emergency personnel. If that hits the night before, I mean, they're playing the game there. No different than the Fog Bowl or the Ice Bowl. You know, if it hits immediately, you're playing in those elements. I think it's the lead up that would scare away and rightfully so, the emergency responders needing to make sure that they have the right people in place that can help the citizens and not necessarily help the football team, although the citizens, I think, would probably vote to help the football team.
Yeah, they'd rather say, just leave the cops here for us.
Yeah.
It's fine. I can make it in this snowstorm. I don't care if I've been barricaded in by 8 feet of snow. The Bills need to host a playoff game to get to a Super Bowl and win it. And Hutton, I don't know how many of our listeners or viewers have been to Kansas City in January. We have. It can get very cold.
Chad, I've been in the coldest I've ever been was on the sidelines where
that was the December game where it was Ryan Suckup hit the long field goal to win it for the Titans.
Yeah, the standing on the Arrowhead at Arrowhead, Suckup hit the field goal back at the place where he first started his career. It was 4 degrees at kickoff, and it got below 0. It was so cold that my phone, fully charged from pregame, by the time it was the 10-minute mark of the first quarter, my phone had died.
Yeah.
Because my battery refused to work on the sideline of that game. That's how cold it was.
I've got a worse story than that. When we were in Kansas City for Titans-Chiefs AFC Championship game in January, that was like teens, maybe down to single digits during that game. Very cold. But I was waiting for an Uber, and by the time I walked from the heated press box to the Uber, which is probably 800 yards away,
probably
at the top of that hill close to the baseball stadium, my phone was dying, and the Uber driver was lost and could not find me. And I'm sitting there waiting on this guy and trying to call him before my phone. I mean, the power is going down in record time because it's so cold. And I'm trying to warm my phone up to save the battery. The guy cannot find me, does not speak great English, and I'm trying to explain where I don't know the city. I'm telling him what all is around me to try to come get me. And I'm convinced because I had to leave the game a little bit early to go to the airport and no one else is around. I'm thinking, I'm going to freeze to death out here. Like for the first time, I'm like, I don't know if I can. I'm going to have to break out the window of one of these cars to get in for some sort of warmth because I might die if my phone dies. And I'm walking around looking at people with portable chargers. It was that bad. I was like the scene in Sopranos when they're lost out in the woods.
He's gathering kindling to start a fire next to the stadium.
You guys come back out. Are you okay?
People just driving by.
I'm one with the parking lot. I've just started my own fire. I've fashioned different pieces of cloth from curtains that I found breaking into homes in the area and wrapped it around me.
KC fans are driving by. Go, man, when did we turn into San Francisco and L.A.? Look at this guy.
I look like John J. Rambo in First Blood. I've got my own clothes that I've made out of it. I'm chasing rats out of holes. That was me in Kansas City. Also, moral of the story for everyone, also cold. Kansas City gets freezing cold in January. I know it's a shocker to some.
Yeah, and as long as there's not a buildup to some massive storm, I don't think they can move it in time, especially given the fact of the other elements we've seen teams play through. What do you think, Hudson?
Well, I know Detroit's not going to have to worry about hosting a playoff game, so that venue will be open. But the thing about the Bills having to go to Detroit, they are the first team to win back-to-back games at Ford Field since 2016. So I don't think they would mind having to go back there.
What
Obviously,
a great point.
They lose home field advantage, but hey.
See, now that is a stat.
Davey Hudson stealing one of my one big thing on every NFL game this week.
You robbed it for tomorrow?
No,
when is the one big thing coming? Well, he could have just added to it.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's great.
Because of Davey's
it's a great
stat,
example.
It's now 2 big things on every NFL game, and that's going to be the second big thing. That is so embarrassing for the Detroit Lions, too.
But they've now won back-to-back games for the first time in, I think that's right, in this regime's history in Detroit.
Well, I had the stat earlier this week. The Bills became the first team ever in NFL history to win 3 Thursday night games in the same season, while also becoming the first team in NFL history to beat 4 Super Bowl champion winning head coaches all on the road in one season.
Wow.
To your point, Hutton, the Lions will have an opportunity to get the back-to-back game this week against the Vikings. And somehow, even though they're, 5-7, they're the favorite over the 10-2 Vikings. So something to keep an eye on.
So they haven't won back-to-back games this year. I thought they had.
No, they've won back-to-back games, just not back-to-back games at Ford Field.
At Ford Field, yeah. Well, still, that's the first time with Dan Campbell they've won back-to-back games, period.
The unfriendly confines of Ford Field. That was surprising when I saw that they were a favorite, even though the Lions, it's because the Lions are playing a lot better. I mean, at 5-7, they're on, for the Lions, they're on a heater.
The note that they have now scored 31 or more in 3 of their last 4 victories. They've won 4 of their last 5. And the only loss was the 28-25 loss to Buffalo in that 5-game stretch. Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. Coming up, we'll give final thoughts on today's big news with John Robinson being fired. Continue to hit the headlines. We'll see if John Heyman, Chad, has confirmed the report he's already kind of confirming by saying the Giants don't know, and he apologized for jumping the gun. Does that mean he jumped the gun on the news, or that is this Schefter announcing Brady's retirement prematurely, but he never denied it and it ended up being true? You know what I mean? Is this the equivalent of that, or is he saying that the report's not accurate? I don't read into it that same way. It's very confusing.
Here's my guess. He tweets this out, and a principal involved in this story sent him a text and said, that's not true right now. Could be Aaron Judge, could be a Giants person, could be any number of things.
We haven't heard from Aaron.
Someone, again, a principal involved that he would believe that's close to the story said, nope, not yet, or now's not the time, or that's not true, to where he wants to sort of retract.
We will also take a look at the NFC playoff picture when we return on OutKick 360.
2 teams went out. One was actually a team from the unit that I now play on TV that was attached to us. They went out. They went on the front side, or went around to go to the front side of this other house, and my team was basically going towards the back side of the house. So very shortly, what happened was it was the wrong house. And when we hit that one house, the actual house it was, which was next door, which is not exactly next door because Sutter City is kind of weird of how it's built. But, they heard us. They were getting ready, prepping, their gear, and so they were ready to go. So when that team came around, a bunch of dudes opened up out of the front, what I assume would be the living room, with AKs and shot. I think they shot 3. If I'm not mistaken, they shot 3 of the members of that team. 2 of them were pretty much out of the fight at that point. But they were, it was heavy. I wasn't on that side of the house, but just hearing it, I was like, oh man, that's extreme. So I ran into the back door, which came into the kitchen, cleared through there, went in the hallway, and those same guys, as we approached that room, shot through the walls of that hallway, shot the guy literally right next to me. So then we backed off, and then we were and I'd have to draw it out, but we were in a tactical position that was just there wasn't a lot we could do. So we were trying to kind of figure out how to solve it. And the next thing I know, I remember just the whole room, or actually it wasn't really a room, it was the hallway, so it was more like a tube straight at me, and just everything exploded. And I actually remember hitting the ground and looking up down the hallway. And I was just confused. I didn't know what had happened. And I can say, getting shot at, okay. It's one thing, but the explosion made me feel small. It was like a superhero just grabbed me and was like, or it was like the Hulk grabbed me and was like, it felt like a supernatural power. And it blew, so it was a nighttime hit. It blew my nods and my nod mount off my face. So I went from, under nods to not being able to see anything. It obviously, my arm, I thought it blew off. I'm trying to think of what else it wrecked, but wrecked several things. But and everything was pitch black for me, and I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt my arm was blown off, so I got up and walked outside to the back, and there was a wall that we had hopped to get in. That wasn't happening, so I just put my back against the wall and tried to take care of myself. But I never lost consciousness. The only time actually I did lose consciousness is when, and I still to this day don't know how they got me over that wall. I have no idea. But other than that, probably 5 minutes that they got me over the wall, I never lost consciousness.
Couple of big news nuggets today as we wrap up OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. Baker Mayfield claimed by the Los Angeles Rams today. They were the only team to place a claim for Mayfield on waivers. Even at that $1.3 million salary, no one else jumped in for Baker Mayfield. It's the same as this whole offseason, really, which has been strange, trading for Baker Mayfield, even though the Browns are going to have to eat some of that contract. Also, Jimmy Garoppolo, while the broken ankle is not great, it's not going to require surgery. It's not the Liz Frank injury, which means, based on the rehab process, he could be available in 7 to 8 weeks. As we sit here today, we're 10 weeks from the Super Bowl. So that means he could return midway through a postseason run, for the 49ers. And Titans general manager John Robinson today fired by the team that is 7-5, sitting atop the AFC South. Chad, the Packers sit atop the wins total for the league.
It's an amazing stat. There are some numbers that just I see or I hear, and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. This one, when I first read it, just blew me away. So, Packers and Bears played on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers had the salute to the Bears crowd on his way out because he owns the Chicago Bears. But with that win, the Packers jumped the Bears for most wins in NFL history. They were dead even at 786 wins apiece. And these two teams happened to meet in December of 2022 in the Bears' 103rd season in the NFL, the Chicago Bears / Decatur Staleys, and the Green Bay Packers in their 102nd season.
At the oldest stadium in the league.
Yes. And the Packers joined in year 2 of the Bears' existence. And the overall records were Bears now are 786 and 620 with 42 ties. The Packers, 787 wins, 589 losses, 38 ties. So a better winning percentage for the Packers, and now more wins. Packers number 1, most wins in NFL history. Bears number 2. It's just amazing to me that they meet, and that's how they pass them. After all this time, over 100 years of NFL history, that's where it happens. I thought that was pretty cool.
And on top of that, they're up 10-0. And then Aaron Rodgers leads the comeback with Christian Watson.
Aaron Rodgers goes Aaron Rodgers.
He's like, I really love this franchise. I really love this city. It's like a second home, I think is what he said post-game for his performance where he continues to win over Chicago. Still no official word on Aaron Judge from anyone other than John Heyman, who tweeted out that Giants have not heard on Aaron Judge. My apologies for jumping the gun. This after he's saying that it appears as though Judge is about to become a San Francisco Giant with the massive contract. Chad, just wrapping up our thoughts on Robinson being fired today, just briefly. We're stunned. I still await further details because I'm like you. There has to be more behind the scenes with this. It just doesn't. The timing's off.
There's a lot of Twitter discussion about it today, social media, and people are going through, well, here's the reason why he's no longer the coach or the GM because this draft pick trade. Yeah, A.J. Brown, we all understand what went wrong for John Robinson. I just have not been able to figure out why this timing. There's no advantage to it other than if it's some sort of morale issue or something where it's just untenable and the two sides can no longer work with each other. It's not as if you're going to get a head start in a GM search where you're going to go poach someone from another franchise right now. It's not going to happen until after the season. So it's a message from Amy Adams Strunk, but there also has to be some practicality behind it.
Yeah.
I don't think she's someone who just makes a decision all willy-nilly and because she wants to appease the fans. But I do think that there is an element of timing with this.
No doubt.
That is definitely a signal to John Robinson and a signal to the fans that we as an organization do not fully support the trading away of A.J. Brown that this guy wanted to do. And we have placed him, and maybe rightfully so, squarely under that bus as they head out of Philadelphia because A.J. Brown put one on the Titans, and the Titans do not look like a Super Bowl contender. And Amy Adams Strunk, Titans owner, is also saying where this organization needs to be is contending for Super Bowls, and that's not the reality.
It's just weird that you come to that conclusion at 7-5, knowing you're going to the postseason with a win over Jacksonville, guaranteed.
And you're going to win your third straight division.
Yeah, they never had a losing season with him as GM.
6 NFL seasons, no losing records, going on a 7th. So this is going to be, I believe, it's going to be close. But I think they're going to have a winning record this year too, which would be 7-7.
The Buccaneers now sit in the driver's seat for the NFC South after last night's Monday Night Football victory over the Saints. Here's a look at the NFC playoff picture where the Buccaneers at 6-6 would host right now the Dallas Cowboys, who are at 9-3. Now, consider this. The Christmas Eve game between the Cowboys and the Eagles, who sit atop the NFC. Intriguing because who knows what happens down the stretch. But that could be Philadelphia on the road again in Tampa for the opening round of the postseason. It's not out of the realm of possibility based on how Dallas is also playing. They've scored 50-plus twice this year. The Seahawks, by the way, the 7 seed, they have a nice win this past weekend, and it was Geno Smith's first game-winning drive since 2014. He's going to be comeback player of the year, and that's an example why.
And deserve it.
They are on their way to the playoffs as long as they continue this path that they're on with their schedule. They're a good but not great team. Kenneth Walker III has a bum ankle, so that's one to watch. They would be on the road against Minnesota. The Giants currently have that other spot, not the Commanders, based on the tie. But again, that will be the Commanders or the Giants right now on the road against San Francisco. San Francisco doesn't have Jimmy G. The Giants and Commanders still have a lot to say there. And then, who knows what really happens in the NFC South? One team's getting in there. How many out of the East? Right now, 3. But if the 49ers, if they drop off, you've got a bad team. Potentially the Seattle Seahawks winning the division, which opens up another spot if San Francisco drops out because Jimmy G's no longer the starter.
The Commanders are around also.
No doubt. More tomorrow. Hope you'll join us at 3 o'clock Eastern for OutKick 360 across the OutKick network.